Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Friday special. I'm Taimur Shamil. Afghanistan is an issue for the region, and having peace and stability in Afghanistan is indispensable. It's very important, not just for the people of Afghanistan who have been fighting this war for the last many years, but also for the region, for Pakistan, for Iran, and other regional countries. Peace talks are underway in Afghanistan, and both parties, United States and the Taliban, have been meeting in Qatar. The sixth round wrapped up yesterday in Qatar, and there was a little optimism as well in the reports, in the media reports, though at the moment Kabul government and US has not been speaking much about those developments, but reports are that there is something going on and some positive signs are there. But at the same time, there are different ways of approaching and looking at the Afghan affairs. Some people think that nobody, and nobody means nobody, no country, no group should impose the peace talks on the people of Afghanistan. Nobody can impose the pace of the peace talks on Afghanistan. People themselves, the people of Afghanistan, would decide for their fate, for their future, and how they want to address this issue of extremism and terrorism and the war that is going on between the Taliban and the government forces over there. Though Taliban have not still accepted Kabul government as a third party to this whole scenario, there were earlier some developments, and there was this expectation that Kabul government might join the peace talks with the Taliban, but they denied that. Let's see if that is going to happen anytime soon. Talking about Afghanistan, extremism and terrorism, as I said earlier, is also a big issue, not just for Afghanistan, but also for the region. And in this case, Pakistan, Iran, China, Russia, these countries have been together, and they have been thinking about addressing the issue of Daesh, ISIS in Afghanistan. The reports are there that somehow ISIS has been gaining grounds in Afghanistan. There were some attacks in Pakistan and Balochistan, for that matter, in Punjab as well. Sindh, Sufi shrines were attacked, schools inside Pakistan and in Afghanistan as well were attacked. Other countries also feel that ISIS can become a big threat, not just for Afghanistan, but also for the region, after especially coming back from Syria. There might be individuals who might be coming back from Syria and gaining ground in Afghanistan. Today we are going to discuss about this, Afghanistan, the peace process, and Daesh as a threat, and how the region is going to address this issue of terrorism and extremism, and specifically Daesh. To discuss this, we have our special guest in the studios. Our first guest is Brigadier retired Salim Qamar Butt, renowned senior analyst and expert on Pakistan's national security and also the Afghan affairs. Sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Our second guest, Mr. Hassan Khan. He's an expert on Pakistan's foreign policy, its relations with Afghanistan, and especially on the internal dynamics of Afghanistan as well. Sir, welcome to the show. Our third guest is Dr. Mansoor Akbar Kundi. He's an expert on Pakistan's foreign policy, on foreign affairs, and on the international relations as well. Sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Brigadier, but starting with the peace process in Afghanistan, the sixth round of the peace talks in Qatar wrapped up. Taliban were there, the US officials were there. So far, Taliban have not agreed on accepting Kabul government as a legitimate partner or as a legitimate party to this whole issue. Their tenure is going to end. That might be coming soon, though President Ashraf Ghani also got this extension from the Afghan Supreme Court. How do you see the situation? They are gaining more time, the Kabul government. Taliban don't want to talk to them. What is going on in Afghanistan?
Very aptly summarized, Taimur, by you. And we are all, the whole world is watching, finger crossed, as to what is likely outcome of this peace dialogue. There are three actors as regards the success of the peace dialogue. One is the American government, other are the Taliban, and third is the Afghan government. But as you rightly stated, Afghanistan, Taliban are not considering the government to be a legitimate government, so that is why they are not agreeing to talk to them. Whereas this is one of the sticking points out of the 4 points. Number one, that Taliban should declare ceasefire and only talk. But Taliban are talking and fighting. So this is yet to be resolved, despite 6 rounds have already gone in. But Khalilzad has not been able to convince the Taliban to declare ceasefire, because Taliban feel if they do that, the only leverage they have within Afghanistan, they are going to lose that upper hand or leverage. Number two, that is how they are keeping the Afghanistan incumbent government looking isolated, looking irrelevant, looking incompetent, and of no use to even the Americans. So this is their probably strategy to continue to fight. The second sticking point was from the Taliban side that the US should first announce a program for drawdown, and preferably that should be within a year rather than 2 years or 3 years as they probably are looking at the time frame. So this is surprising that despite 6 rounds already concluded, they have not been able to agree even on the first 2 points that I just described. The remaining third point is that you mentioned, that was that the Taliban, Afghanistan should talk to Afghanistan government. They are not agreeing, and they are, in my assessment, Taliban at best can agree to talk to the representative as may come out of the Loya Jirga that just culminated with 3,200 delegates from all over Afghanistan. And I read somewhere that SAF has been nominated the chairman now for nominating a delegation, and I heard they are thinking of making about a composite delegation, all inclusive and representative of Afghanistan, all segments, all ethnicities, about 50 people who should travel to Doha and talk to Taliban. So probably in the next round, maybe in the 7th round, we may see that happening, that ultimately Afghan Taliban are talking to some representative from Afghanistan. And as it happened in Moscow, 50 delegates went from Afghanistan, and within that, Afghanistan government sent their own representatives saying that they have gone there in their private capacity. So that is how I see it. But as you notice, that the progress is very cautious, very slow. Both sides are showing optimism, and that is very reassuring that Taliban are showing positivity, and the statements coming from them that they do not want the monopoly over the power in Afghanistan. They also want all-inclusive power. They also want a representative from all over Afghanistan into the new format, new political dispensation.
So they would certainly also
so I see
want something.
lot of positivity.
Mr. Hassan, this thing is very interesting that President Ghani of Afghanistan, he got extension and by the Afghan Supreme Court, Afghanistan Supreme Court. Do you think that this extension would give the Kabul government, I won't say upper hand, but maybe an important position in now dealing with the Taliban?
Look, I think, Timur, the problem is this talks, peace talks begins last year when already Ashraf Ghani government was going to retire on 21st of this month, of the May. So unfortunately, they were already at the agenda of their tenure. 1, 2, definitely in the Afghan constitutions there is nothing like an interim setup. So there is a government and there is not a government. So the problem was that now the elections were scheduled to be held in April. And they were rescheduled for July, and now I think they have gone to up to September, November.
October.
Yeah. So the problem is that Ghani, and there is no provision where the Supreme Court can grant any government a further extension. But here the Supreme Court has done it. But unfortunately, Ashraf Ghani, as far as he is concerned, he is at the moment totally isolated. All the important figures around him, his own chief executive, Dr. Abdullah, is not with him. Even he did not attend the Loya Jirga, which Brigadier Saab has referred to. Salahuddin Rabbani, his foreign minister, he was not part of that Loya Jirga. Mr. Hanif Atmar was he is in opposition, but I am talking of the people. I am talking of the people who are with Dr. Ashraf Ghani, like the High Peace Council, Karim Khalili. He is the chairman of the High Peace Council. He was not there. These are the people who are in the government. But now, as far as the opposition is concerned, whether President Karzai, Gulbuddin Hikmatyar, Ata Mohammad Noor, वगैरह, most of them have not attended the Loya Jirga. But okay, that was an affair which Ashraf Ghani tried to get a type of what you call it a support, the political mileage from it. But the problem is not that whether Ashraf Ghani is isolated or he is a weak or not, he is strong, but he is representing the government. On one side it is Taliban, on the other side this is the Afghan government. So definitely, if you I think you might have seen the yesterday's statement of Suhail Shaheen, who is the spokesperson for the political office of Taliban in Qatar. He stated that the talks are going on a positive trajectory and we are progressing, and we are here. We heard each other with the positive approach and very passionately. But the statement of Khalilzad, it was not that much, I think, positive. Khalilzad said, yes, the talks were held. There was a little progress, but keeping the violence in mind in Afghanistan, there is no progress as far as the talks are concerned, because so far we fail to implement that resolution of reducing violence in Afghanistan. This is violence is like just day before yesterday,
NGO
just
was-
before that counterpart was attacked in Kabul, and almost a daily routine now where the Taliban are attacking the security post, and they are taking sometimes the hostages also, the security or the police.
And meanwhile, the talks continue.
And they are also talking about the problem for Taliban is very, I think we have to understand their position also. Taliban is not a political force. We have to keep that fact in mind. They are a military force, and they knew that as long as their muscles are strong militarily, they can show their strength, so they can be accommodated. But the day they say that they put their arms down, so they fear that mostly the biggest fear of Taliban is they may be defeated on the table in the political.
So repeatedly they have to show the
yeah,
force,
so they have to keep the military and one, two. They say if we announce a ceasefire and all our fighters, because they are not a regular army, they just we call it Pashto Ashar,
And
a
different
collective
factions as
community
well
like
within
things.
the
yeah.
Taliban.
So and the other is that factionalism it
Within
can
the
erupt
Taliban.
also. So I think Taliban have that problem. But one thing is positive, and that is talks are progressing, and it is no more that one day affair. Usually we see that it was more than 3 days they were in talks continuously, and there was a time when they were continuously for talks in 15 days. So it means that the talks are progressing. The speed is yes. The result on the ground are not that much visible. But we hope, because the international community, as Brigadier Saab has referred to, US is supporting it, Pakistan is supporting it, China, Russia, it means that all the international powers, they agreed on one point. I think previously it never happened like that. No. They agreed on one point, that we need peace in Afghanistan.
Right. Dr. Kundi, now President Ashraf Ghani has got the extension. What would be the strategy from the Taliban side? How would they respond to this development? Because they were going to complete their tenure this month, as Mr. Hassan said. That doesn't happen, that didn't happen. So Taliban might resort to new ways of questioning or undermining the Kabul government and their authority over there, and continue with their own ways of addressing the issue.
You know how you can address Afghanistan situation. The war is going on for almost 40 years, and this second post-Taliban period, which now they are going to settle down and through negotiation, is almost 17 years since then. So situation is very complex. You can't answer, you can't sum up in one answer. I believe it's not bad that he got extension. In fact, Americans have lost this war. Not now, even the analysts said years before. And one thing more, that Ashraf Ghani, even far unlike Karzai, is a total failure. Despite the fact that Abdullah was with him, Salahuddin Rabbani, and then Dostum joined the government, but the government suffered from crisis of penetration. It was limited, even not fully, to Kabul and its vicinity. Taliban, as Hassan Saab mentioned, are not political force, but they are a force. And if you look into international system, international politics, which I always say is a struggle to gain power, wealth and influence, non-state actors have become very strong, and Taliban is one of the non-state actors which in Afghanistan has become very strong, very strong. I believe humbly, maybe I am mistaken, that this beyond extension, the hopes are kept alive, that maybe a negotiation is made in Doha. In Doha round, I personally pray that comes with success, so that peace is restored. But one thing which is positive through all these crises, that Taliban themselves are, Taliban themselves are hopeful and they are a round table. The turning points are turning points.
We'll continue on this point.
Okay.
After this break, we'll take a break and then we'll continue. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are discussing Afghanistan and the peace process over there. The sixth round of talks in Qatar wrapped up yesterday, and there are reports that some Taliban are of the view that there were some positive signs, there were some developments as well, but let's see if this is going to happen anytime soon. Brigadier Butt, talking about this Afghanistan situation, the different reports are there. But at the same time, as we were discussing, the violence continues in Afghanistan. As Dr. Kundi was saying, perhaps that is the Taliban way of showing their aggression and force, because they are the military force, as Mr. Hassan Khan said. If this continues, violence and talks parallel, do you think that there would be any breakthrough anytime soon, and what would be the situation 7 months on, let's say 6 or 7 months on?
Short answer is that I don't see any breakthrough anytime soon. But I want to register a few points here with respect to the peace process that is going on. Number one, US is under tremendous political pressure, keeping in view the forthcoming presidential election in 2020 and Trump's compulsion to deliver on his promise of pulling out from Afghanistan and Syria completely, calling it endless war. So he has to deliver, and that is why Mr. Khalilzad is running pillar to post in order to find some solution, find some way out to get out of Afghanistan. Although yesterday the American Joint Chief of Defense Staff General Joseph Dunford once again reiterated the Pentagon thinking on the process, that he said that they have to keep some forces for quite some time in Afghanistan, and they are not supporting the withdrawal at all. So that is something to do with the internal politics and the difference in the thinking of the White House, the Langley and the Pentagon. So Pentagon and Langley want to persist because they have objectives in their mind which have not been fulfilled on the pretext, the stated pretext of leaving no vacuum here. The counter question is, when they were not here, was there any vacuum here? Taliban were ruling Afghanistan for 5-6 long years, 96 to 2001, when the American came. So this argument is not good. The next point is that the regional countries have to prepare for the best and the worst case scenario. But the worst case scenario is that recon fails, doesn't happen, and still under political compulsion the American withdraw, leave. So there is likely to be a chaos, maybe falling back to 90s like situation. That is the worst scenario. Then there is a scenario of partial recon, that Taliban and American reach out to some solution and Afghan government, incumbent government becomes redundant, irrelevant, and then there has to be a political dispensation agreed upon between America and the Taliban. And the best scenario is that we were already discussing that all three main actors, they agree upon, duly supported by all the regional countries, as Khan Sahib was saying, that this is the first time ever that all regional countries, Russia, China, Pakistan, everybody. But then we got to keep in mind that there are countries which are still playing the spoiler role, and India is #1 country. Now, India, having seen that there are chances of recon success, they are again trying to be spoiler. They are reaching out to now China from the back door. They are reaching out to even Taliban in order to find some relevance in Afghanistan, and that is what the government of Pakistan has to be very cautious about. So I have written about it. You may read it in the newspaper tomorrow, day after.
Your column, certainly. Mr. Hassan Khan, this issue in Afghanistan is inherently political at the moment. Do you agree with that? Because ultimately it is the people of Afghanistan who have to decide for their future. How would the Kabul government, Taliban, and other political factions and warring factions for that matter would come together and address this political issue in Afghanistan?
Yeah, you are right. I think this is a political issue, and this is up to the Afghan political leadership their ethnic leadership and their religious, what you call it, the commanders, jihadi commanders, and the people, they have to decide, because lasting peace can only be ensured there until and unless the Afghans sat together with the Afghan and they come up with a formula. Because US can't, historically we have I think imported various what you call programs for, like in Geneva, what we did in Geneva failed, what we did in Bonn process failed, the Peshawar Accord, the Makkah Accord, we have a number of accords there. And I think if it is again a Doha Accord, but it is not a Kabul Accord. So I don't see any what you call it, a success for that. But I hope this time, I think there is a bigger realization, because this time it is not only the two superpower negotiating with each other as happened in Geneva or as happened in Bonn, where only the one superpower was dictating all the things. In Geneva it was the USSR and the US. But this time, I think, the regional countries have been taken into confidence, like the Prime Minister visit to Iran. And, I agree with the Brigadier Saab that India is trying to get relevant to the whole process. And this is the second visit of Zalmay Khalilzad, who went to New Delhi and he interacted with the Delhi leadership. I think if it is for good, then I think it shall be welcome. But unfortunately, the history of Indian involvement in Afghanistan, it is not that, it's not for what we call it, Hubbi Ali. It is always for Bughz-e Mawiya that India's presence and India's relevance in Afghanistan is anti-Pakistan. So that if the US and the other powers convince India that peace is the ultimate goal and peace is good for Pakistan, peace is good for the region, only then I think we can achieve the lasting sustainable peace, stability in Afghanistan. Otherwise, if one sit on one side and the other sit on the other side, and one is throwing stone at your side and you are throwing stone on my side, then again will be the old things.
And let me add to that accords, no matter not very successful, bring some goodness. For example, Bonn Accord brought constitutional government to Afghanistan. Now it's their problem. And the major fact, okay, let me tell you for that. 2004 constitution frame, elections held. Afghanistan suffering from law and order situation, no matter, election were held. Not very successful. And like a democracy, which is like a small tree, can grow stronger with time. And
so, peace was not there. Bonn failed to bring peace to Afghanistan.
And the major problem is, which now Taliban are stressing upon, that you give us framework. I have studied in 2 of American universities. America can never see an Islamic country becoming second world or first world. This is their strategy even during Cold World War. Taliban telling them, Khalilzad is playing its inning good, being a professor of political science, a very shrewd, not a professional diplomat, but he knows diplomacy very well. He is trying to bring Taliban on the line that you become non-violent.
So at least they had...
Violence is their strongest strength now. What Taliban are stressing upon, and the deal can be made if Americans are sincere, I'm telling you. They tell America should give us framework. I tell you honestly, as long as Americans are there can be no peace in Afghanistan.
This is very interesting.
And one thing, let me add you more. India in international politics, one dictum rules, enemy of my enemy is my friend. Yeah. America is looking for opportunities. They want garland for our good diplomacy. They are looking for loopholes where we can punish them, where we can create problem for them.
And this is a prevailing sentiment, not just in Pakistan, but in the region. You've heard that a lot of people think that though India isn't new in Afghanistan, they have been there since
they are never new there.
They have their presence in Afghanistan, but still, when President Trump of the United States said that they would like to give India a larger role in Afghanistan, that was of concern to Pakistan and the regional countries as well. As you said earlier, that we are sure that they are not there for any good in Afghanistan. But after 17 years of war, we have Daesh, we have ISIS over there, and Daesh has been targeting innocent Pakistanis as well. It's a concern for Iran, Pakistan, Russia, China, other countries in the region. Why Daesh has erupted or come up in Afghanistan 17 years on, and how would regional countries address this issue?
Very nice question. Again, I spoke about it, I think day before yesterday in one of your program with Faisal, and written in the newspaper also on this. That Daesh narrative, although it is projected as a new narrative, and it's very ominous because it is showing clouds of war with ISIS now instead of Al Qaeda, which was sold to us 19 years ago. You know, the narrative was built post 9/11. We never heard the name of Al Qaeda before that in Afghanistan. So Al Qaeda came into Afghanistan, and with that came America and 50 allies, and decimation of Afghanistan took place. Then Al Qaeda splintered, went to Iraq, then went to Syria, transformed into Al Qaeda, into ISIS. Now the same ISIS is coming back to from where it had gone out. So my question is that in these 19, 20 years, what has America been killing? What have they been destroying? Had they destroyed Al Qaeda, then these people wouldn't have been there. If you ask them how many are the numbers, somebody would say 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, gone up to 30,000 in Syria, coming from all over the globe. The money is coming to them, the weapons are coming to them, they are being trained, they are being equipped, they are being financed, and nothing is coming into the notice of 50 countries coalition that is there to kill them all. But whom have they killed? They have killed the Islamic civilization in the whole region, in the Middle East, in the Levant, in the Sahel area, into Afghanistan, and now with this new narrative why ISIS coming back to Afghanistan, same human resource, they are now developing a new nexus to a new narrative that the radical groups in Pakistan, all those proscribed organizations which are very small, very rudimentary, and already under the focus of, sharp focus of NAB and Pakistan Armed Forces, intelligence agencies and law enforcement, they are being rehabilitated or being nabbed. But now the new narrative and their sponsor, narrative spreader within Pakistan is propagating, oh, Islamic State is a new threat coming to Pakistan, so we got to fight this narrative now. If we indulge into and follow this ghost again as we go, followed the ghost of Al Qaeda and IMU and ETIM in tribal areas. Actually, we fought the real Afghan war was fought in Pakistani tribal areas, and we won that. That is not digestible to the Western allies who just got the red faces and the bloody noses there. So my simple assessment is that this narrative of spreading ISIS nexus into Pakistan through acts of sabotage, these are all stage managed through the hostile intelligence agencies. One we witnessed yesterday at Data Darbar Shrine in Lahore, like the one we witnessed in Sri Lanka.
And
now,
interestingly, Hizbul Ahrar claimed the responsibility, and they have their presence in Afghanistan.
Right, they are the
right
Taliban Pakistan offshoot.
United States and NATO forces over there.
So they are offshoot of the Taliban Pakistan as per the record. But who's the sponsor and financer of Taliban Pakistan? Of course, it is India. Everybody knows that. We have given those proofs to everybody in the world. So India is going to carry out a lot of acts of sabotage, and then you will find the boggy claims coming, Islamic State is doing this Pakistan, and create a lot of sectarian strife in Pakistan, try to spoil our relation with Iran. So this is a very dangerous narrative, and I hope the government of Pakistan in coordination with Iran will fight back this narrative and make sure that we do not indulge into any kind of chase which is going to take us into another spiral of 20 years long war.
Mr. Hassan, Daesh is also a big threat to Afghanistan, people of Afghanistan. They have been repeatedly attacked by Daesh, especially in areas of Mazar-e-Sharif and other areas. How do you think that countries in the region can eliminate this threat of Daesh in Afghanistan? And why in the first place Daesh has been able to gain ground in Afghanistan?
Look, I think there are a number of theories, and the one dominant theory, especially in Afghanistan, is that the American brought Daesh to the Afghanistan. And there were these reports of plane roads and helicopters transporting different type of people to different parts, especially to the south and to the north. And these alarm bells were raised by the Russian and the regional countries, that is the US, which is supporting it. This is a very dominant view. But there is also another view which is supporting this point of view that US is behind Daesh, is that US want Daesh, they want the rebels fight with the rebels. They want to kill Taliban with Daesh, because Taliban have a different perspective for Afghanistan. Their perspective is that we want Afghanistan free of foreign occupation, and they were not interested in the foreign countries. Neither they want Afghanistan to be used as a springboard, as a launching pad for international Khilafah movement. But Daesh has that Ummah type of things brought from the Middle East. So this thing, I think, it was a very dangerous game. And unfortunately, I agree with Brigadier Saab that look, the US, that when they want to go somewhere, so they do something obnoxious, and then they say, we are here the survivor, and we will do that for you. So I think that is an issue. And now I think there is a realization that to bring peace to Afghanistan, why Taliban are negotiating with they say that once you go out, we can handle the Daesh issue easily. That is our responsibility. It is our country. We will handle that. But the Americans are stressing that no, that is a bigger threat, and they have challenged the entire Afghan army, the entire international forces in Afghanistan. But I think Taliban also knew that as the Afghan leadership, even President Karzai said it on record a number of times, that Daesh is behind the US is behind the Daesh things, because in Iran is another thorn for the US in the US eyes. Definitely, Daesh has an anti-Shia narrative, so, and that is very dangerous. So I think it was done on purpose. Now the regional countries, and I think here the Indians' roles comes in. That is, for God's sake, stop this anti-Pakistan and things like that. Because it can be a threat to China, it can be a threat to Russia, it can be a threat to Pakistan, it can be a threat to Iran, but it can also be a threat to India, because India is not immune like that. Right. They haven't that watertight like things that no, these things will not. And already you mentioned this Sri Lankan attack, which was perpetrated from India. So I think this is the time that regional countries, regional powers, states realize the gravity of the situation. That until as long as to an extent I agree with the Professor Saab, that unless and until US is there, so we can hardly hope for peace in Afghanistan. But it is again like Pakistan is also concerned. If US leave Afghanistan abruptly, as the Soviet did in 1988, so what happened after that? So here is also the chicken and egg things, that you go first, I will go later, or you go later, I will go first. This type of thing is here. The US shall be, I think, kept engaged to a certain, because until and unless the things are not stabilized, because you don't know what happened after the agreement between the Afghan and Afghan. So it is a very tricky thing as for the Afghan thing. The one word which I can use for the whole thing is that we are in an era of dirty wars. There is a dirty war. You don't know who is fighting for whom, who is killing whom, and who is being killed for what.
So, political settlement, this is very interesting, Dr. Kundi, that this whole thing that is going on in Afghanistan is very dangerous, and nothing is making sense at the moment. But do you think some people are of the view that United Nations and perhaps SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, such big organizations can take the task of development in Afghanistan once the US leaves, and Taliban and people from other political parties can ensure peace and stability, political peace and stability in Afghanistan? Do you agree with that?
I pray they should. I can't comment on that, but I wish it's done. You know, I wrote my PhD dissertation on Afghanistan, revolution and counter-revolution. The fault line, the major fault line happened after Soviet Union forces bogged down. America abandoned Afghanistan. It's on record, and 20 years ago, 30. So I agree with you, but who will do it? Pakistan should take initiation. China should do it. China should play a role. Russia should play a role, and the UN should play a major role. That peace is restored. You know, you were mentioning Daesh here. I mean, I served in University of Balochistan for a long time. Even many years ago, in 9 and 10 and 11, this Daesh, we heard about Daesh in Balochistan. And when Daesh forces were very stronger in Syria and Iraq, their stepneys were here, the signs were here. And one thing more, Balochistan, we need good governance, we need social justice, we need good infrastructure. Otherwise, these forces, I tell you, will predominate in our area. Or they can give us damage. We need good governance. Like to take Balochistan, in Baloch belt, things are not satisfactory.
You're right that working on the governance would certainly improve the situation, but people who are
But I tell you,
supporting these
if America gets out of Afghanistan, peace restored, and one thing Taliban are doing wrong to me,
Right.
they should sit with Ashraf Ghani government. Ashraf Ghani has done one thing good, and I like about him. He straight away told Americans and everybody, we are unable to work here under constitution as long as Taliban are either taken into confidence or they become part of government.
Well, this is very tricky, and let's see if Taliban would agree with that, or how would they
Now
respond
see
to it.
what happens in Doha.
In Doha.
But
That's
one
right.
thing I tell you, one should be optimistic, hope should go on.
Certainly.
See what happens.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Brigadier Bhatt, pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for your time. Dr. Hasan Khan, pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for your time. Dr. Kundi, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. That's all from Friday Special. See you next time. Khuda Hafiz.
مؤصدة في عمد ممددة